used to look like this. I had no confidence, zero attention from girls, and I was struggling to lose fat. This is me now. I'm lean, I have way better confidence, and losing fat is like so much easier than ever before. In this video, I'm gonna give you my step-by-step process to losing belly fat so you can get similar results to me, but way faster. Step number 1. Everything starts with diet. I know that you have heard people say, in the past, that you can't outtrain a bad diet, but there's a reason why so many people say it over and over, because it's actually true. When I was fat back in the day, right, I worked out somewhat consistently and, I was doing cardio, but my body looked the same for months and months at a time. I made like close to no progress. The main reason why I was struggling so much was because my diet was complete trash. I could eat junk food several times a week, and I was just constantly over consuming with every single thing that I had. I just couldn't stop myself from stuffing my face. I remember just feeling so frustrated, because I was doing the right things by exercising and doing cardio, but because I didn't change my diet, I made close to no progress whatsoever, even though I put in some hard work. I was constantly overlooking the problem all this time, without realizing it. And the main reason was because my diet was literally terrible. That was the main reason why I didn't make progress. Now, what I did personally, right, to start making progress wasn't, to go complete cold turkey and only have healthy foods every single day, chicken, broccoli, and rice. I decided to take the slower approach instead, and, ease myself into it and gradually introduce, the healthier foods over time, rather than go crazy from the start. What I did personally, and I recommend you to do as well, to actually make fast progress, is to clean up your eating environment first. What this basically means, right, is just that you don't have bad foods, easy to access around your home. Because by doing that, you will stick way easier to the plan and, not mess up on the way that you eat, because you don't even have the bad foods in the first place. Now, if you feel like you want my personal help with this, where I will guide you step by step along the way, to losing fat, but also getting way more attractive in less time than it took me personally, just like in this picture right here, then click the first link in the description. So imagine this, right? You just finished a workout and, you're getting into routine of just exercising in general. So because you're doing these good things, right, you think to yourself, so I need to reward myself for doing this hard work, right? So you go into your kitchen and the first thing you see after your workout is a bag of chips and, a bar of chocolate laying on the counter. Can you just imagine what's going to happen next? You think to yourself, well, I did finish a workout, right? So I guess I have to reward myself. And by doing that, you take one piece of the chocolate and a few chips. And before you know it, if I know you well, because I did the same thing myself, in just a matter of time, the whole bag of chips is gone and you ate the complete chocolate bar as well. Why this is so specific is because this is exactly what happened to me for months and months at a time. The real progress started to happen once I improved my eating environment, just decided to get rid of all the snacks or, at least not buy them for the time being. This makes it so much easier to actually stay on track. Why not have your home, right, work in your favor instead of against you when you actually want to change your body, right? It's a no-brainer when you actually think about it. It's literally going to be 10 times or even more times easier, to actually stay consistent once you follow through with this step. Just trust me when I say this. Have your home work in your favor instead of against you. And I promise you, you will start to make progress without even realizing it, simply by just removing the snacks out of your home. So before you think to yourself, oh, I need to do this really intense diet and, chicken, broccoli, and rice every single day, start with this small step first of cleaning up your eating environment. And just that small step alone will help you to get on the right path. Just trust me when I say this. It's so much more powerful than you think, because this will just make a massive difference to your diet without even having to improve the way that you eat. Number 2, keep your food choices as simple as possible. This is a problem that a lot of people face, and this was me included, especially when we're first starting out. When it comes to getting in shape, right, people tend to overcomplicate every single thing about it, especially when it comes down to what foods to eat. Now, I don't blame you, right? Because I can't blame myself. There's so much information out there about different foods. So it's so hard, when you think to yourself, like, what is the right thing to do and what's not the right thing to do? There's just complete overload of information out there. Me personally, I've tried all kinds of different diets and, different ways to eat. And what I figured out for myself that works the best for me, and probably for you as well, is to just stick to the basics. And let me explain what I mean. You know, the best foods to eat that I recommend you, and I did myself, is just focusing on whole foods. What this basically means, right, is just that you focus on eating foods that are unprocessed and with as little ingredients in them as possible. You know, not these weird ass ingredient lists. You can't even like pronounce half of the things in there. Keep it as basic as possible and nothing else. What I personally do is just stick to basic things like ground beef or, you know, steak, fish, chicken, rice, potatoes, and, you know, basic ingredients, nothing complicated. You know, not this weird frozen meals with weird ingredients list, or, you know, some weird food that's like 100 different ingredients in them, you know, with weird preservatives, and, you know, the list goes on. I think you get the point that I'm saying, right? You know, not only will these whole foods that I'm talking about, they will be way better for your body, but most importantly, from my opinion and my experience, they keep you full for way longer, you know, compared to these processed foods. And by keeping you full longer, it makes it way easier to stick to the plan, because you won't be as hungry, you know, throughout the day and decide to go snacking or whatever you can think of. If you eat whole foods, you will be able to stay satiated, you know, until the next meal without having to mess up with some weird chocolate or, you know, a bag of chips or whatever. What I found personally has been the best way, you know, to stay consistent with whole foods is to meal prep a big batch that will last you a couple of days in the fridge. You know, just think to yourself, right? The most common ways that we mess up when we eat is when we don't have, you know, food ready to eat from the fridge. And, you know, we have to make something on the fly, or, you know, we decide to order, you know, takeaway food or something instead. That is when we mess up, when we don't make it convenient for ourselves. Now, when I say meal prep a big batch, right, it doesn't have to be complicated like whatsoever. What I personally do is just, you know, take some veggies like onions, bell peppers, mushrooms, or whatever you like. Chop those up, add them into a pot, you know, stir them around for a bit, and then you add your protein. Let's say ground beef, chicken, fish, or whatever you like. On top of that, you just add a can of crushed tomatoes, you know, to bring up the volume. Let that you cook for a few minutes, or, you know, like let's say 20-30 minutes. Then you have a stew that will last you for like 2 to 3 days. Just combine that with either rice or potatoes, and that is all you need. It's so simple if you just take some action and actually do it. You know, the main concept of, you know, eating healthy and actually staying consistent with the foods that you eat is to make it convenient and simple for yourself, because there's no way by doing that you will mess up. You know, because you just have food in the fridge all the time that you can eat over and over. And this is the best way to actually start making results, by making it convenient, but also simple and enjoyable. Now, why I'm telling you this kind of specific recipe is because this is what I mainly eat, you know, some sort of stew. That is what I eat, to go from looking like this to now looking like this. You have to make it convenient for yourself, and that is how you get the results you want. You know, you just have to eat this way for a long enough time, and the results will show itself if you just stay consistent. Number 3, combine your improved eating with doing more exercise. Now, just improving the way that you eat alone, you know, will get you good results. But once we combine that, you know, improving the eating with some exercise, and we put them together, that is when we get great results compared to just getting good results. You know, be honest with yourself here. You don't really care about losing the fat itself, right? You mostly just want to look good and feel good, you know, when you take your shirt off, for example, because that's exactly how I felt. You know, if I just look good and feel good, that's the thing that matters. And I don't really care about, you know, losing the fat specifically, or, you know, what kind of weight that I have. Just that I look good and that I feel good. That is it. Now, the best way and the fastest way to achieve this kind of goal is by combining, you know, the eating with the exercising. Because by doing that, we can lose fat from the improved eating, but also build muscle at the same time by exercising. Now, when I talk about exercise specifically, what I mean is resistance training. You know, putting your body under some kind of pressure, you know, so it helps the muscle to grow stronger and denser. And, you know, by doing it this way, you know, improving the eating and adding some exercising, we can slim down. Meanwhile, we build more muscle to our frame. You know, we lose the fat and build muscle at the same time. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than that. Now, just like I mentioned with the eating, right? When it comes to fitness and, you know, exercising, we need to follow the principle of keeping it as simple as possible as well. You know, nothing complicated, because that's only going to make it harder for us to stay consistent. What I did personally, and I recommend you to do as well, is to start going to the gym about 3 days a week. You know, let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And, when it comes to what routine to follow, what I recommend most people to start with is push, pull, legs. And let me explain what it means. I'll put a picture of the routine on the screen right now so you can copy it to get started. This routine hits all the body parts that you need to build an aesthetic body over time. Now, when you're first starting out, right, in the beginning of going to the gym, don't focus so much on, completing the routine or, the workout program, but more so just that you try and show up consistently at the gym. That is the first step that everyone needs to start doing. It doesn't matter what kind of workout routine you have if you can't even show up to the gym consistently anyway. Just ease yourself into the whole process and you'll take your time to learn the exercises properly, before you start adding weight. Because this way you remove the complete risk of injury when you actually learn the exercises properly and, don't start ego lifting. Now, once you create a solid structure for yourself, by improving the way that you eat and doing more exercise on a weekly basis, you're on a great path to improving the body exactly the way that you want it to be. Now remember, if you want my personal help with this, where I will guide you step by step along the way to lose the fat and get way more attractive along the way, in less time than it took me personally by not making my mistakes, then click the first link in the description. Number 4, stay active throughout the day. Now, the main reason why most people struggle to lose fat, besides the way that they eat, is because they don't move their body nearly as much as they actually have to. The majority of people, right, and this was me included, we have such a sedentary lifestyle. We sit down on the way to work or school, we sit down at work or school, and once we get home, we just sit down as well and, do all the things, watching YouTube videos or whatever we can think of. We sit down literally 90% of our day, besides, when we're sleeping. Now, I'm not here to say, that you need to do intense runs every single day. However, what I want you to do is to just stay more active throughout the day. And let me give you some examples that you can follow. A simple hack that you can use that I do personally is that, most of the time when you're going outside or, going to work or school, usually there is a set of stairs that you can take, right? Because I'm 100% certain that you usually take the escalator or the elevator instead, right? By taking the stairs more on a daily basis, this makes a big difference in improving the step count you have every single day. Now, of course, you have to be smart about this. Let's say you have like 10 floors to go up with the elevator, right? Then maybe you don't take the stairs for all of them. But let's say you go up to like floor 6 or 7, then you take the stairs for the rest. Small things like this, trust me, on a daily basis. On a daily basis, this makes a big difference. Now, what I personally did, besides just taking the stairs more, that was a complete game changer for me. Was instead of doing these intense runs on a daily basis, I decided to go for a slow walk, like 30 to 45 minutes every single day. This is so underrated when it comes to fat loss, because when you do this on a daily basis, the calories that you burn, they add up so much faster than you think. And a slow walk, like 99% of us, right, we can do this without much effort. Going for a slow walk every single day. This was the main cardio that I did, and I'm not even exaggerating here. This was the main kind of cardio that I did, to go from looking like this to now looking like this. You just have to do it on a consistent basis, over a longer period of time. And this is all that you need, when you improve the way that you eat and add some form of exercise on top of this. Now, just try this out for yourself for a couple of days, and I promise you that you will feel better physically and mentally. And, you will just feel lighter on your feet. You will see that the scale is going down and, all these good benefits simply by just doing more walking on a daily basis. Number 5, be patient with the results, but impatient with taking action. This right here is one of the biggest struggles that most people have, when it comes to fitness and just getting in shape in general. I'm not excluding myself here when I first started. We simply don't have the patience, to stick with the plan long enough to get the results that we want. We just decide to give up because we don't see instant results. The harsh truth is, and I know that you already know this, but you don't want to accept it. The harsh truth is that there is no shortcuts whatsoever. The best way to actually get the results that you want is by doing the boring stuff, doing that consistently over a longer period of time. You don't have to overcomplicate it with anything else. Focus on the basics and do them for a long enough time. And I promise you, the results that you want, they will come with time. Now, however, right, you can speed this process up by simply taking more action instead of just thinking about doing the things you want to do. By not procrastinating, you can speed up this process like 10 times faster by actually focusing on doing the right things from this day on. You know, there is no perfect time to start, and there never will be. You know, don't make the same mistake that I did. I waited for months and months, you know, thinking to myself, oh, I need this to align, you know, this thing to align before I start getting in shape. And by doing this, I stayed stagnant for months when I could have improved my body way faster by just taking action instantly. Don't think about the end result too much, you know, that you have to do this for a long period of time, but just focus on doing it one single day at a time. You know, today you focus on eating good and exercising, and you don't think about tomorrow whatsoever until tomorrow happens, because that is the best way to keep doing this. You know, if you focus on one day at a time, before you even think about it, the months will have passed, and you know, you will look yourself in the mirror and see a completely different person. Your body will be completely changed, and your mental health will be drastically improved as well. Now, if you want my personal help with this, where I will guide you step by step along the way to lose the fat and get so much more attractive in less time than it took me personally, you know, without making it complicated with weird diets or weird workouts, then click the link in the description and watch that video.